Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this month's September Religion 101. I'm James Light. I'm a member of the board of directors of the South Coast Interfaith Council, also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity that I have to host these wonderful seminars. Um, we we have with us tonight the Reverend Dr. Sharon Hudson from the Center for Spiritual Living in Redondo Beach. So she's a member of the one of the churches in our community in the South Bay area, and grateful to have her. Um, One of her members is John Alsberger, and he's been a member of the board of the South Coast Interfaith Council. So it's really great to have her come and speak about their church, their community, their religion, and those kind of things. So I just want to remind everyone, if it's your first time joining or even viewing, that we have we have an email list that I send out an email to let everyone know about a week before the seminar. So if you want your email added to that list, like a friend invited you and you use a Zoom link, then put it in the chat, and I'll record that and add you to our email list. We also do have a list of people that we send out for all of our events for the South Coast Interfaith Council. And if you're interested, you can always go to scinterfaith.org, and that is our webpage. It has all sorts of postings and stuff about our events that cover education, service, celebration, and things like that. So we really, it's a great organization that we're able to be a part of, that brings all of us from all the different religious and faith groups and communities together to learn about each other and to learn from each other. So grateful for that. Uh, if it's your first time joining Religion 101, I'll just give a quick little orientation. We have our featured speaker take however much time, 45 minutes to an hour is pretty typical, to talk about their community, their group, their religion, their beliefs, origins, and things that things that they do in their community. And then we'll open it up to questions, and we usually have a great opportunity for people to ask questions and to have a great discussion. Sometimes we share about what's similar or different about our different communities, which is always a great way to learn. And I always remind folks, and I don't really think I don't have to, because we never have any challenges with this, but always keep in mind that our main focus is not to debate, but we want to learn about the group, the religious community, from our featured speaker. And so questions are great, and we always have a lot of great discussion, and it really is a lot of fun, and very uplifting to share and to learn from each other. So I don't forget about it. At the end, I do want to do one thing. I want to share with you. One is, I will share and just show everyone our webpage. So this is the page for the South Coast Interfaith Council, scinterfaith.org. And hey, there you go. Religion 101 is front and center. And there's a calendar, and there's all sorts of information about all of the events that we do. We got a lot of great events that are recurring stuff on the calendar and things like that. And so we're always looking for people to participate. And then also, so don't forget, is our next month's Religion 101 will be a special topic, and that will be, I'm going to pull it up here. Let's see, where did it go? Well, I'll do it this way. Okay, so let's see here. Boom. Okay, I will show it. Here is in October. Everyone can see this. We will have Dr. Ahmed Sobo, who's the religious director at the Islamic Center of Yorba Linda, and he's going to talk about commemoration of holy days in Islam. And so it's a special topic to talk about what the different holy days, holidays, special days throughout the year are, or periods. And he's going to talk about those and how they're commemorated and how they sort of become a part of the worship and religious life of the folks in the Muslim community in Southern California, really. So that will be Thursday, October 26th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Same Zoom link. I will send out a reminder with this little poster, and so feel free to invite your friends to participate in that Religion 101. We will not have a Religion 101 in November or December. We have another one scheduled in January, and we're always adding. So if you do have an interesting friend or associate in any of the churches that could talk about a religion that we haven't covered recently, or also talk about a special topic in any church or religion, then by all means, please let me know, and we'd love to invite them and have them participate. And we're getting quite a long playlist on our South Coast Interfaith Council YouTube page, and so it's always great to add new topics. So with that being said, I'll turn the time over to Sharon, and I'll let you give any kind of introduction, and also if you do want to offer like any kind of invocation or at the beginning that would be just exactly like what you would do, then that would be great as well. Okay, so Reverend Hudson.
Thank you. Thank you, James. And it's a joy to be here. And so I would like to start with a little centering in spirit. If you'd like to join me, feel free to close your eyes, relax, whatever's comfortable for you. Leave your eyes open. And I just take a moment to really be still first. In this stillness, I open my heart and mind to the awareness of the divine, the presence of God, life itself. I know this presence is unbounded love in which we are all connected. This presence is deep grounding peace. It is wisdom. It is the creative activity of the universe itself. And so as we come together in the presence as the presence, I just speak a word for our time together, knowing that it flows easily, that every person on the call is a welcome presence, and that we together explore the possibilities of our own spiritual lives, discovering what else is possible and what else is out in the world. Just our time together is blessed in 1,000 ways that we do as spiritual beings, as spiritual leaders, as spiritual participants, hold the highest and best for the world. In my heart, I want to see peace in the hearts and minds of all. So I release this word, knowing that as the word is spoken, it is already done. I let go with a grateful heart. I give thanks, knowing it is good. Our time together is blessed, and so it is. And so we end a prayer with, and so it is. The word amen is sometimes used, but amen means verily, truly. And so it is about the same thing. That's how we generally pray. So it's just good to be here. I think I'll just introduce myself a little bit first. I have been in religious science, science of mind, since I was a preteen. I was Catholic before that. My mother was a spiritual seeker. And so we tried a lot of things when I was young. We tried school and natural order, self-realization, fellowship, unity, religious science. I think Church of the Age of Aquarius or something. We really went to some fun places. And we ended up in unity and also religious science. They are both part of New Thought. And I actually had a very spiritual experience when I was a teen, just walking in the fog. I had a overwhelming experience that I would call the presence of God, just, unnameable, transformative, love, expanded. Can't describe it in either way. But at that time, I had the call to be a minister, but of course that didn't happen until many years later. So I've been a minister for 28 years. In my previous life, and even a little bit in ministry, my background is in accounting. I also was a software developer, a manager. I ultimately became director of human resources for a technology company. So I had a great business background, I guess I would say, which also does well as a minister when you're managing a church. It's nice to have those things in the background. One of the things that's been my passion my whole life is good communications, teaching interpersonal communications and conflict transformation. So those are things I do workshops on and teach and have worked in the world to do, to bring peace where there may be discord. I'm going to just start with some slides that I have about what religious science is, who we are, and all of that. So I'm assuming you can see this. So religious science is how this time was labeled. Religious science is the foundation of our teaching. We call it a philosophy, a faith, a way of life. We currently the name of our organization is Centers for Spiritual Living. We found that religious science, the name on our churches and centers, seemed to be confusing. People often confused it with Christian Science or even Scientology. And so we found that Centers for Spiritual Living speaks more to our culture today. People are comfortable with that. The idea of the words religious and science, I think is twofold, but the science part of it is really an invitation to, as you would in science, to do some experiments, to try these principles and see if they work and prove them to yourself. That's the scientific side of it. But also there is, Ernest Holmes said something like, we look forward to the day when religion and science walk hand in hand. And so in a way, religious science is also looking at, as you read here, it's a synthesis of the laws of science, the opinions of philosophy, and the revelations of religion applied to human needs and the aspirations of humankind. Ernest Holmes was quite proud of that. He said he wanted to describe the teaching of the philosophy in 25 words or less, and thought he did it there. So Ernest Holmes is the founder. We'll be talking about him in just a moment. He published a book called The Science of Mind. Oftentimes, our philosophy is called the science of mind. So you might have heard religious science, science of mind, Centers for Spiritual Living. It's pretty much all the same thing. Over on the left, you'll see this little circle with the V. That's a teaching symbol for the science of mind. The Science of Mind is the name of the book that Ernest Holmes published in 1926. It is a big book. It has a whole section on the teachings of Jesus in the middle of it. It's probably 700 to 800 pages, depending on which version you purchase. He was a prolific writer, wrote many, many books. Also a very excellent speaker, lecturer, inspiring speaker. He established the Institute of Religious Science and School of Philosophy in 1926, as well as publishing that book in Los Angeles. And this later became the Church of Religious Science, and it has evolved, as you can see here, since then. So let's see. In Centers for Spiritual Living today, this is our mission. Our mission is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. We really believe the power of our principles and that we can make a difference in the world, in our own lives, and in the lives of others. Our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence. We see the divine in and through and as all things, including individuals, uniquely expressing this. And our vision is to create a world that works for everyone. So here's Ernest Holmes. He was born in 1887. I don't know where that came from. And he studied the world's religions, the great philosophers, and kept himself abreast of discoveries in the world of science during his lifetime. His dream was to develop one single philosophy that was devoid of all cultural dogmas, that would contain the common teachings of truth that he discovered running through all the great traditions. I think I have one more page here. Yeah. These are people who inspired him. When he was about 20 years old, he read Ralph Waldo Emerson for the first time. And he says it was like a drink of fresh water to him. It completely changed his life because Ralph Waldo Emerson speaks about self-reliance and really believing what you believe and speaking it loudly now. As you all know, he was a philosopher, essayist. The way he expresses things, he has passion and conviction, and he makes them personal in his writings. He has intellectual concepts too. He's considered the father of New Thought. We'll be talking about New Thought in a moment. The other two people that really influenced Ernest Holmes were Judge Thomas Troward, who was British. He was a jurist and a metaphysician. He was a colonial judge in India, and he researched religions of the East and the West. He became a great lecturer. His lectures have been put in books that we study in our organization, actually. And finally, Emma Curtis Hopkins. So Thomas Troward brought the logic, the legal mind of analyzing how the world works and how it works in our lives, and what is God and how does that all work. Ralph Waldo Emerson brought some warmth to it, a personal sense to it, and Emma Curtis Hopkins was a mystic. She really brings that sense of being one with the divine and having a mystical experience and just living so hugely into faith and believing in the healing powers of faith. I'm going to stop my share right there. I want to just say a little bit more about the points that Emerson makes. He says that we are our own spiritual authority, that there's a godlike essence in every person, that there's some kind of connection between our thoughts and what happens to us. And that's one of the big things in the science of mind, is that you can change your thinking and change your life, that we do have the power to notice where our mind goes, and that if we're thinking and having fearful thoughts and feelings, that doesn't bring us into having good things in our life. We do have the power to begin to have a positive view, change our thinking, believe that good can come to us, believe that we are good, see our own divinity, and it completely transforms your life. And I have seen that personally up close and in every way you can imagine. One of the things is that he was exposed to Christian Science too, and discovered the healing power of prayer a little more deeply there, but did not go for Christian Science. There were some things about that organization that just didn't settle with him. He ultimately became ordained as a divine science minister, and he moved to California when he was 25 years old. His brother had a congregational church, and so he helped his brother with his church. And eventually he discovered a metaphysical library where he began to check out books, and that's where he discovered Thomas Troward. Thomas teaches that we can use the God power within us consciously to change our life for the better. He believes that there's an omnipresence, that wherever spirit is at all, the whole of spirit must be, and there's not a spot where God is not. Ernest Holmes went on to publish many books. He also published, I believe, starting in 1927, the Science of Mind magazine, which is still in print today. We read it. It's fabulous. It has inspiration all through it. I'm going to go back to no, I'm just going to talk about the church. So our organization, Centers for Spiritual Living, is based in Golden, Colorado. We are a global community that is comprised of more than 400 spiritual communities now. Some of them are teaching chapters, and we even have study groups. They are in 30 countries. We train and licensed practitioners. Practitioners study for 4 years to become licensed to provide spiritual support and prayer for people. And they have to continue doing things to retain their licenses. We have 4 or 5, no, we probably have 6 or 8 practitioners at our center who are available for prayer support. We also train ministers. We have 5 campuses in the United States that train ministers. We have 2 in Canada. We have 1 in Mexico. We have 1 in Kenya. We have quite a few Hispanic centers in South America and in Mexico. Lots of training and spiritual leaders being trained there. Very excited to have this new thought going on. We also have Holmes Institute as part of our organization, and Holmes Institute is different than our School of Spiritual Leadership. School of Spiritual Leadership and Holmes Institute together train our ministers, but Holmes Institute offers an accredited master's degree in wisdom studies. Right now we have Reverend Catherine McKinney with us on this call, and she is the Dean of the School of Ministry for Los Angeles, which is located at the Redondo Beach Center for Spiritual Living. So it's kind of nice to have you with us, Catherine. Yeah. I'm going to go back to my slides now and talk a little bit about the greater organization that we're part of in a way. So Science of Mind, is also part of New Thought. I want to talk a little bit about New Thought because it isn't, I would say, I think I said earlier that Ralph Waldo Emerson, we think of as perhaps the father of New Thought, but actually the New Thought philosophy goes way back before that. And I will be sharing a little bit more about that in a minute. But first, I want to do this little slide that says, first, what New Thought is not. It's not a name of any fixed system of thought, philosophy, or religion. For when it's molded into a system, it ceases to be new. The idea is that we're always open at the top, that we're always curious and discovering new things to become aware of in the world of spirituality and in the world of our own lives and thoughts. So here's a definition of the purpose of New Thoughts. It is to promote interest in and the practice of a true philosophy of life and happiness, to show that through right thinking, one's loftiest ideals may be brought into present realization, and to advance intelligent and systematic treatment of disease by spiritual and mental methods. One of the first things that you would think about New Thought, if you look back at the roots of New Thought, is that it was about healing. There are many examples of people being healed through the power of their mind, really. Here's some thoughts on New Thought that I thought I would just grab to share with you. So Horatio Dresser says in The Spirit of New Thought that it stands for the practice of the presence of God, reduced to a scientific method of a selfless life through union with a power that is love in action, a power that can bring light and peace to people, rob death of its sting and pain of its poignancy, takes terror out of disease, and crowns life with the joy and health and abundance which are the rightful inheritance of every child of God. And Ernest Holmes, in one of the readers, a reader for all seasons, writes, that which distinguishes the New Thought from the old is not a denial of this divine reality, but an affirmation of its immediate availability. The miracles of the ages must become commonplace occurrences in the new order of life. Let us convert prayer into a conscious communion with the invisible and faith into a dynamic use of spiritual power. Let us take the mist out of the mysterious. Let us understand the one divine power has always existed and has always interpreted itself to people by interpreting itself through them. You know, I kind of want to stop and ask if there are any questions, but I guess I'm just going to keep racing on and you can save them till the end. If we look at where New Thought came from, if you begin to look back at this far back, ancient Egypt, the Vedantas in India, Lao Tzu in China, all of these, I'm just throwing up on the screen for you to see that if you, as Ernest Holmes began reading, he read world religions. He studied Buddhism and Hinduism and the great philosophers in ancient times, from ancient times. And you'll see there's a thread of commonality about God, how the world works, the spiritual life that runs through all of these. And these things he coalesced and worked and trying to figure out what's really true, what's really true. How does this work? How does this work? They called him the big question mark. He was just like, take it in And he began speaking in just speaking in people's homes, and then someone invited him to come and speak at a library. I'm going to go back here to this, and he was just excited about the things he was reading. That's how he really got started. And before you knew it, he was speaking to huge audiences at the Ebell Theater in Los Angeles, and overflowing crowds. And eventually, then started an actual center school of philosophy and religious science. So here's just some touching again on those that list, the long list. So Hinduism, there was a concept of a great unity, one God, the absolute, the Brahma. These are some of the things that would have been read. I know that he read The Divine Life by Aurobindo because he speaks about that in one of his books. He studied Buddhism. He speaks about Buddhism too. Ancient Greek philosophers. And I love Meister Eckhart. All things are God. Let God be in you. You are always God expressing. And Emile Coué taught about affirmations. Always make them positive. Have your thoughts never go to the negative, and keep them in the present tense and feel as if you're living them right now. These are the things. So we think about New Thought. These are some of the philosophies, teachings that are part of New Thought. This year at the Parliament of World Religions in Chicago, all of these organizations were represented. You'll see Centers for Spiritual Living up in the right-hand corner. Unity's here twice because they actually have two organizations. One's the Unity Village, and one is their worldwide ministries. We have quite a few organizations. Originally, I would say that it was Divine Science, Unity, and Centers for Spiritual Living were the big ones. We now have Agape and affiliated New Thought Network and some other ones, including the Universal Foundation for Better Living, which is just simply amazing. So that's that a little bit. One of the things we say in Science of Mind, when you come to our center, you may hear this, that we believe there are many paths to God, that whatever path you're on and wherever you are on that path, you are welcome here. So what do we teach? We teach God, first cause, one mind, the presence. Ernest Holmes says, infinite presence, rather than a being with a face in the form of a man sitting on a throne in heaven. God is intelligence or mind. He says mind with a capital M, everywhere present throughout the universe. And yet it has infinite personalness. It isn't feminine or masculine. It doesn't have some kind of predestined thought about us. It's just the power of creation itself is how I like to look at it in a way. And yet it's a very personal presence of love. In his writings, Ernest Holmes uses many words for the divine. Spirit with a capital S, mind with a capital M, universe with a capital U. It's like you could probably find a word that worked for you if you weren't comfortable with one particular word. This is one of the things I love about this philosophy. You're invited to discover what's true for you. There's no one thing you need to believe. I'm saying this is what we teach. But if that doesn't work for you, it's fine. We want you to find what works for you in your own spiritual way of being in the world. We do believe that in our relationship to God, that we are divine. Awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence is one of our key goals. I love this quote from the book called This Thing Called You by Ernest Holmes. He says, you belong to the universe in which you live. You are one with the creative genius back of this vast array of ceaseless motion, this original flow of life. You're as much a part of it as the sun, the earth, and the air. There is something in you telling you this, like a voice echoing from some mountaintop of inward vision, like a light whose origin no man has seen, like an impulse welling up from an invisible source. So God is all there is. We are one with God. We believe in the power of prayer. And I put a quote from the Bible, which many of you are probably familiar with. You know, if you say to this mountain, go throw yourself in the sea and do not doubt it in your heart, believe what you're saying will happen. It will be done for you. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you've received it and it will be yours. This is the foundation of our teaching right here. We absolutely believe that, and we see it work all the time. We believe in the unity of all life, in the power of love. We believe and see Jesus as the great way shower. Ernest Holmes looked a lot at the teachings of Jesus. I'm going to just stop sharing for a moment and talk about this. His faith grew greatly as he studied the teachings of Jesus as a fairly young man. His mother had a heart condition. She was not well. And so he looked at how Jesus prayed, and Jesus always prayed in the affirmative, stand and walk. He absolutely spoke with a powerful word. And so so Ernest always began to pray for his mother that way, and she was healed and went on to live like another 50 years or something. His faith was huge. In fact, one of the things that his institute did was people would come there to be healed. They would come there for healing prayer. And it's just amazing the power that was discovered and continues to be true, and how we can heal the body, the mind, the spirit. Okay, I'm going to go back to my slide one more time. I probably could talk more about that, but I won't. Just heaven and hell are states of consciousness is the last thing on this slide. Pope John Paul, getting tongue-tied, actually says, you can look it up on the internet. He said, heaven and hell are states of mind. Just look it up. And so I'm feeling pretty good leaning into my Catholic roots that the Pope agrees with this, that heaven and hell are something that we experience here on earth today. Oops. How do we practice our faith? We believe in personal transformation by the application of the principles that we teach and communion with spirit. We believe in prayer. We have a 5-step form of prayer. I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll close the slide out. Education is huge for us. We have classes ongoing almost all the time. We have book studies. We really believe that there's always more to learn. Most religious scientists are lifelong learners. We believe in service. Giving service is powerful in your own personal life. And of course, meditation is key. We teach meditation. We meditate. That is one of our biggest spiritual practices. And generosity of heart, giving and helping make the world a better place. This is a picture of our sanctuary in Redondo Beach. We have a huge sanctuary. It holds more than 600 people. We have classes. We have a teen group. We have a youth ministry and childcare. We have 2 book studies ongoing all the time. We have a spiritual discussion group in addition to that. Men's group, women's group. We have a labyrinth walk monthly. We have concerts. We have a drumming circle, yoga class, a garden club. We're having the New Earth Expo at our center in October, the 21st and 22nd. And we have a fabulous, well-stocked bookstore and a library. I didn't even put the library on there. So I was going to go back to something I showed you on the last slide. I don't remember what it was. I think that's it for now. Anybody have any questions or comments?
It was prayer treatment.
Oh, that's what it was. Thank you. Yeah, let me talk about prayer. Thank you, Reverend Catherine. So our 5 steps of prayer are very specific. And we start with, first of all, recognizing the power of God, because tuning into that awareness of the divine presence. And the second step is to recognize that that presence is in, through, and around all. We call it unification. So I recognize that that is right here in and as me, expressing uniquely through me and through all of life. Once you have really grounded in that, then you speak an affirmative word for what you want. And it is a statement of how it will be to have what you want in the present tense. So if you're looking for a relationship, this is how I got my husband, by the way. You would say that I am now in the most amazing relationship with, and start to describe how it would feel for you and what you would expect to be in that relationship. The most powerful thing about prayer for us is that you feel now as if it's already so, just like the Bible said. Feel now as if it's already so, believing it is so. Once you really embody that, you have that whole full picture, that vision, that sense of it, then there's 2 simple steps to letting go. You say thank you, and you release it, knowing that there's a power in the universe doing the work. And I don't need to worry about the details. I will do what is mine to do, but that presence will just bring into my life whatever it is I've spoken so powerfully in prayer for. Thank you, Reverend Catherine, for reminding me what I was going to talk about. I think that's it for me. Any questions? Thoughts?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, let's open it up to some questions. Oh, Manic put some questions. He asked in the chat. He said, "Did you miss uh, Zarathustra, who lived
Yeah.
over 5,000 years ago, also known as Zoroaster?" So I guess the question is, did was there any, was there any understanding of sort of that uh, ancient philosophy from Zoroaster that sort of blends into the framework that was established?
I'm sure, and I'm not sure that Ernest Holmes studied it, but I certainly know about Zoroastrianism, but not enough to speak intelligently about it. So thank you for bringing it up. But yes, that list was not complete. I have a longer list. I just put the things that we could just kind of grasp. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
So
Thank
I
you
guess go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Father Alexi. Ask
thank you
your
very much
question.
for the presentation this evening. Many years ago, I met Frank Richelieu,
Oh, yes.
and I certainly worked with, in more recent years, the Reverend Mora. I'm assuming that Frank Richelieu is no longer alive, but where is the Reverend Mora?
So Dr. Moira is still attending church. She's not the senior minister right now. She did have a health challenge, and she's recovering beautifully
Oh,
from
okay.
it. And the expectation is that perhaps she'll be ready for retirement. She's still comes to services, gets up on the stage and sings with us, and she's
Oh, good.
presence. Yeah,
Good. Please say hello for me.
I will, Father Alexi. Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
writing that down. She'll love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And I know she loved this organization and was active in it. So
Well,
Yeah.
and I emailed her. I emailed her because that's who I have in mind as your clergy, because there was a Martin Luther King celebration there at the Center for Spiritual Living a couple years ago. This is, I guess, before the pandemic that I attended, and she's always very well spoken. She has a great way to express love to others, which I really admire. So, Carol, did you have a question? Please.
I do, and it's probably kind of a dumb question. I have a couple actually, but I do not know what a labyrinth walk is.
oh
Can you explain that?
yeah, I wish I had a picture. So a labyrinth, I'm thinking of which is it Ely? The Great Episcopal Cathedral in San Francisco, I believe, has a labyrinth. So a labyrinth is a pattern on the floor or the ground that is a singular path that moves you to the center. It looks like one of those things where you'd have to get to the other side on a maze. But it's just usually painted or with rocks outlining it, and you would walk it to the center. And the idea is it's a spiritual practice to walk to the center, feel yourself really being one with spirit, feel the presence of the divine, and just notice what comes to you. It's like a reflective opportunity to allow spirit to flow through you. And everybody has a different experience. So we actually have someone leading a guided meditation when you're there to do the walk in the labyrinth. So there's a big canvas that's laid out on the floor in Richelieu Hall, and you're asked to wear stockings, no shoes, to walk on the canvas. And you go to the center, and then to leave the center, there's a different way to go back. Usually you don't go back the same way. It's a very cool. There are several different designs for a labyrinth. Thanks for asking.
So that's a great question. A few years ago, when we had the South Bay Interfaith Thanksgiving service, it was at St. Lawrence, and they had a labyrinth walk set up in one of their rooms or areas, and they had like it had, I don't even know that had any, not music, but it was
Yes.
sort of like candle lit. It was very peaceful, and folks could go. And my question is that when people are participating, if you have a bunch of people, then they're sort of all sort of moving, through the labyrinth, And so is it sort of a self-reflective thing? Is there an aspect of it of doing it with others as a group, not sort of maybe contemplating. I can think of an example in my church where after we participate in services in our temples, we end up in a room that we call the celestial room, and people will, there are couches and chairs and stuff. It's very quiet. Some people will pray. Some people will, discuss quietly and things like that, right? So that it's not necessarily an isolated experience, but it is a very what was it, like a very reverential type experience. So can you describe how that sort of, are there those elements of the labyrinth walk as part of that practice?
Sure, I've done the labyrinth on different labyrinths over the years, and usually there is soft music and soft lighting, and it is usually for the self. We're not necessarily interacting. We are aware of the people around us, but we don't talk. Usually it's in silence, and so it's your experience. You can go at your pace, and sometimes you have to pass by people, and you just do. Labyrinths can be pretty full, and if it seems like there's too many people will just sit on the sides and wait until it feels like time for them to enter the labyrinth and have their own experience. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Great question.
Yeah, thanks, Carol.
I have another question, actually. What is, first of all, your presentation has been just excellent. It's, I know Moira too, and I've been to there in Redondo Beach a few times, but I really didn't understand what your beliefs were. So I found that very interesting, and I think you presented it quite well. My question is, what is your belief about life after death?
I love that question. I almost put immortality on my list of things we believe in, but Ernest Holmes teaches that. And it honestly, when I read this decades ago, I was really surprised because, people wonder, do we believe in reincarnation and all that? Well, he had no thought about that, whether that was such a thing or not. We don't teach that. You get to choose that. But he really believed that on the other side, we would know and we would be known, that our consciousness continued, that it was a glorious experience. And in fact, he had an experience at the Whittier Church where he stopped speaking and he just had an experience. And he said, the veil is thin. He said, and I shall speak no more, and sat down. It's like he went there. My personal experience is that I have known people that have had that near-death experience and shared what happened afterwards. And so I'm clear that they know who they are and they're with loved ones. So that's my belief, but you get to choose what you want to believe about the afterlife. We don't think you go someplace else. There's no heaven, there's no hell, but there's a continuation of your unique individual consciousness.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking. That's a hard one to field. My cousin, I'll tell you a story. My cousin, who lives in Montana, had 5 children, and his 14-year-old son was struck by lightning while he was driving a tractor, and he was killed. And sometime after that, my cousin fell down into a crevice, and his chest was kind of crushed, and he left his body. He was gone. And he saw his son. And his son said, Dad, I am just fine. And you need to go back because the other kids need you. And suddenly he was back in his pain-filled body. And he shares that experience. So when you hear things like that, it's just, in a way, I kind of think we get to make it up. But if you studied, I didn't even have Swedenborg, I don't think, on that list. But Swedenborg also someone who experienced that, going to the other side and coming back. And there's a whole church around. I think you had someone from the Swedenborg church speak. I want to
Yes,
say
we did.
I didn't watch that one, but I've enjoyed watching some of the recordings that you have on your YouTube channel. Thank you for doing that, and keep making them be out there. It's been fun to tune in.
Yeah, I like the reference you make, or that you cited, that he made to the veil. We actually, in our church, we use the same, I guess you call it, analogy. We often talk about the separation that sort of clouds our view of, let's say, the spirit world, that we have had a veil, placed upon us, sort of metaphorical, if you will, to cloud our view of let's say spirits, or or spiritual things around us. And oftentimes, somebody in our church will talk about an experience where they'll say the same thing, where the veil was very thin, where they feel the presence of other persons or whatever, and have those kind of experiences. And I always had the idea that, little children, really young, the veil is much thinner for them. So, they're more aware of perhaps the presence of other spirits, than us as adults. And sort of that idea of having like a child, a childlikeness, to be open to that, to have those kind of experiences. Sometimes it's feeling a presence. Sometimes it might be, in the form of we talk about hearing the whispering of the spirit, and so we relate that to very similar things. So I really admire it's fascinating to me the way that it was expressed, right, as that idea of a veil, and how, if we put our effort into it, and you talked about a lot of these practices and stuff, to where we can, make that veil thin. We can be in tune with the, spiritual presence that can help benefit us, bless us. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. That's
Any
beautiful.
other questions? They're all great questions. Everybody knows I always have several in my hip pocket. So I'll ask one. Can you talk about what, like, when you meet together to worship? You did talk about people will come, and you had a whole list of different
Things we
opportunities, let's say throughout the week, that people come together in different contexts. Do you have like a weekly service or anything like that? And if so, what's that like? Sort of how's it structured to bless the people that are participating in that?
Thank
And
you.
what role does it play? Because
Well, thank you for asking. And I should have done that. I knew that I should include that. And I think at the top of that list of things we had, it said Sunday and Wednesday services at 11 a.m. And I just didn't stop there and just describe our service. It's very much like a traditional service, in that we have music, great music to open. We have an opening prayer. We have announcements about the things that are happening. We have a prayer, opening prayer. We have someone give a short message. We call it inspiration. It's like a 5-minute talk that relates to the speaker's theme that day. And then we have more really great music, usually a special music just before a talk, a lesson, a message. And then we have some more music. Then we have an offertory, and we close with prayer. And we close with a peace song. Let there be peace on earth. At this church, not all churches do that, but it's about community. We have hospitality afterwards. And we right now we have 5 ministers, including myself. And Dr. Moira is present, but she's not serving as a minister right now. So the 5 of us rotate, take turns speaking on Sundays, and we have a guest speakers once in a while. We had what's his name, Catherine, the Buddhist that came? Kusala. Yeah, Kusala came and spoke.
Kusala.
Kusala, yeah, came and spoke recently. I will say that as a minister over the years, I have taught different world religions. I'm fascinated by world religions. I forgot to mention that I was a hospice chaplain, and I was also a chaplain at San Diego Children's Hospital for 5 years. And so I work with people of all faiths, and I just honor their faith. Wherever they're at, that's where I want to meet them and help them feel God's support and presence and guidance in whatever they're going through. And so I've always been fascinated by how God shows up. And you know what my bottom line is about God is that this presence is so amazing that it will show up according to your faith. Absolutely according to your faith. We create our relationship with the divine. There's a book called Coming Home, and it describes think it's 5 different experiences of people of different faiths, including Hindu and Catholic, and how they had such a real experience of God that was powerful, overwhelming. And like the Hindu was with one of the Hindu gods. And, you know, so it's like this presence will let us have the spiritual experience our heart desires in whatever form works for us to feel that. So that's my take on God.
I want to share one of our former board members. Her name's Patty Heckman, and she's part of the SGI Buddhist community, and she shared like sort of her, let's say, faith experience, you know, and how she participates in, you know, they do chanting and meditation. That's a really big part of their worship.
Mhm.
And it's very powerful when someone is able to share that personal experience, right? They've had that connects them to, you know, to God or to a spiritual presence or something like that. So
Mhm.
anyway, it's very powerful when people share that, and then you have the chance to sort of recognize that in others. So
Mhm.
thanks for sharing that. That's a great.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. I love to hear those stories too.
I wanted to ask a couple of things about your service then. So the music, is it vocal and instruments? Is there like a band or piano or something like that? What's typically, you know, what goes into the music when you're together to participate together?
I think music's really important to us, and we have an amazing music director who plays the keyboard. We always have guest singers. We have one of our ministers, Reverend Mary Morgan. Um, she is a singer as well, and she often opens us. We open with an upbeat song. Sometimes we have a guitarist, sometimes we have a violinist. And I mean, these days, that's what we're having. We used to have a big band. Right now, it's slimmed down since COVID. So it's usually just the keyboard. But I will say,
Yeah.
Andy's talented, and he will play soft keyboard behind a prayer, for instance, and help create that sense of sacred space. We have before and after our opening prayer, we have a meditation music, a song that brings you into that centeredness with spirit before we even do our opening prayer or invocation. And then we come out with a little bit of music before the inspirational talk. So that's a great question. And, you know, we would love to have a band. We're open to seeing what else can be created. You know.
Well, it's amazing how you have someone who's very talented pianist, right? I went to an activity at the Pacific Unitarian Church, and they had a very talented, you know, pianist, and you know they had all sorts of music, just all centered around sort of that person's talents or leveraging off of it, and it is a great blessing when you have people like that, you know. So we do too in our church. I also wanted to ask, when you are going to give a talk, a sermon. I know you mentioned like sort of the short talk, but when you're preparing, what is sort of your process for preparing to speak at like on during a service? You know, what is your approach for thinking about, you know, what to talk about and then how to sort of develop, you know, sort of the message that you want to deliver? Can you share with us that?
Sure, you know, our organization started a grassroots thing years ago, probably maybe 15 years ago, where ministers, we decided it would be nice if we would share our brilliant sermon ideas, or we don't even call them sermons, our brilliant lessons or messages. And so we sort of come up with an annual theme that's shared with the ministers in the field. And the annual theme then has themes for each month that are related to that big theme. And this year the theme is living out loud. And so each month they focus on something. They offer topics and even an outline for a talk with some key points, maybe a story and some quotes. And I'll tell you the truth, I sometimes get ideas from those, and most of the time I don't. There was a time when I was a new minister that I had so much to say that I was just full of talks, and then I kind of thought I said it all, like these are all the things that are really important for me to share that I am so excited about, and the stories, And then I started doing book reviews. I could give an inspiring book talk about any book, and then I discovered that the best thing I can do is go to the well, just meditate. And what I do, this is my spiritual practice. When I'm going to prepare a talk, I actually sort of tune into the community. And I may already have an idea of what I want to talk about, but I want to feel a sense of connection to the people there, and know what I need to bring inspiration. What's the thing that people are working on today in today's world? How can we move our world forward in better ways? And I will say that one of the things that our organization is doing is a lot more what I would call standing for human rights, and really taking a stand to make this world a better place. So many of our communities and our ministers are speaking to those things. I will say that Reverend Catherine organized a Juneteenth celebration at our center, and it was amazing, fabulous music and great guests. I didn't say that during our Sunday service, we always have every week a special guest singer, soloist. They sing the song just before the talk and after the talk. And Reverend Mary's not there; they do all the singing for us. But we have people that have been in Disneyland and on stage with, we have famous people sing for us. So we have really, really good upbeat music. Yes.
Great, thanks.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed with, I don't remember which of the slides it was, that you had several things on that you do at church, one of which was service and another one was giving. Mm-hmm. And so the service, I think I know what, in terms of giving, is it giving to the community in general? Do you have a fund of some kind that people donate to at church that you then distribute in some way?
We have
like welfare needs or something, maybe even.
Yeah, we have a food bank, and people donate to that all year long. And then we pass that off to another food bank, really. But we also have people that come to the door and ask for food. And we actually give them food from our food bank. We aren't open like a food bank. We're open during the week. We have a fabulous library and bookstore that's open during the week. But so people can just come to the door. And we have, in particular, at least one person that I think comes regularly that is, needing food. But we also do an angel tree program at Christmas time, where we're giving, we collect money, and we do several things. For Rainbow Services, they have 2 homes for women and their children, and we collect school supplies and money to give them during the summer when school starts. We do that. So we have different projects that go out into the community. The Angel Tree Project supports children in different places that are and families through 3 social services. So, and that's huge. Right now, actually, we have, I think, $5,000 in the Angel Tree Project Fund, and we haven't even started to ask for money this year yet. But we have people that run that. It's very exciting. We used to be able to actually have our whole hall filled with gifts that would be wrapped and given to families that came and drove up to the door. But today, in today's world, that hasn't been happening. Now they really want cards so they can go buy their own gifts for their children. So it's more like collecting money and making sure it's distributed. So we're trying to make a difference out there in the world. And also, of course, service and giving, in any way, financially to support the center. Service is part of giving too. But we're trying to do good works in the community as well.
I remember I have a friend who taught in inner city LA, taught elementary school, and asked several of her friends if we would help her give Christmas to the kids. And so I started thinking, I'd love to get this beautiful little dress or this wonderful doll or something. And I said, what do the kids want? And she said they wanted rice and beans. And I thought, boy, am I out of touch with what they really needed. And when we went and delivered those things, the children's clothes were mismatched. They either didn't have shoes, or they might have one shoe of one kind, another shoe of another kind. And there's just so many things that can be done. And so, the fact that they wanted gift certificates or things to go buy the things they really truly needed says something about the needs today. So I think that's wonderful that you're doing that.
Yeah, I founded a church 28 years ago and served there a very long time. And we always, back in that day, we would adopt families, some of them even from our own church, and, you know, have the big tree with all the tags. And it was really wonderful to be able to get specific things for them. But I think today they need to get what they want. And the parents love to be able to wrap it and make it personal for their children. So I totally understand that. And yet, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Do you have, because you can, if I'm understanding correctly, whatever works for you, whatever belief system works for you, or that you visualize works for you, do you have some sort of baptism to become a member of your church? And do you have any, do you have ways that you contact so you know who is, you know,
How
who
people are
is
doing
part
it.
of the congregation, and if there's a problem, hey, we haven't seen so and so for a while, know how to get a hold of them, that sort of thing? Or is it more just anyone that wants to come comes and they come in and out as time goes?
Great questions. I'm going to start with baptism. We do a christening ceremony or baptism. It's our naming ceremony, but it's really to honor the divine in the child and to make that commitment to the child, to always see that in spite of their behavior sometimes, that they are God in action and divine beings, and to welcome them into the world and name them. So we do that. Of course, we do weddings and memorial services as well. But as far as membership, we have actually at this center, not most centers don't have this, but we do actually have a membership fee. You pay $35 a year to be a member. That comes from olden days. This is a very legacy church. And back in the day, the central office was supported by those kinds of funds. Just a little bit went to them every, once a year from the congregation. Today, that's not how we support our central organization. And yet for this community, the people there really like making that commitment. It's not a big commitment, but they feel included. We definitely follow up on people. There's so many things going on. We all get connected, and the ministry, as soon as we know, we have prayer ministry. So whenever someone needs prayer, they call the office, they call one of us, we put it out to all the practitioners and ministers, and we keep them in our prayers. And we do follow up if we notice someone's not coming. The people that are normally there, we have many volunteers doing many things, everything from doing the gardens and yard to grounds, I should say, to just serving hospitality. So when they're involved and engaged in anything, their team knows if they're missing, we know if they're missing. So yeah, and that's a great question. I think we don't have some centers, the larger centers, we're pretty big actually, but they actually have a telephone tree where, this one person who's a key person, a board member or a practitioner, would have this many names that they would check on once every 3 months. Just call them and check in, and I'd love to get that started here, but it hasn't been happening in such a, I guess, straightforward way. Good questions. I love them.
Well, let me ask a question that's maybe a little related. And I was thinking the same thing. Carol and I are in the same church, and we have we do ministering, right, to each other and stuff, and it's sort of organized. So my question was, in the context of the prayer groups, or with the practitioners, I mean, that is, it seems that's one way that there's a connection among people and stuff like that. So can you maybe elaborate a little bit about how that sort of, as people come together, perhaps guided with one of your practitioners to pray together for each other, for others, how does that sort of bring people together? Because you also said that whenever you're preparing to speak, right, that I noted that you said that, you're trying to think about, you're putting effort in to try to understand what are the needs of your community, and so that comes from many different ways. One, from sort of having that sort of putting yourself meditating in whatever into prayer into a connection, but it
Mhm.
also comes from just talking to people face to face, right? Building relationships and showing love and things like that to understand how people are doing, what their needs are, what they're struggling with, what you can do to strengthen each other. So can you maybe to focus it, talk about how the prayer groups and the as you I think you call them practitioners, facilitate that and how that builds sort of to or sort of adds to your community.
Great question. So after service, and I didn't talk about this before, but we invite the practitioners to come and stand up front and the ministers as well. And we let people know that they are available for prayer immediately after service. And so if you come up to the front after service as other people are going off to hospitality, you can speak to them one-on-one. And there was a tradition of having a prayer circle. There's a right in one corner in front of the stage where people would gather in a circle with a practitioner or maybe even two practitioners, and they would, say what they're requesting prayer for, and together then that someone will be praying for the different things that come forth. Sometimes we end up with an informal prayer circle. We're not really advertising a prayer circle. It's just been a little different since COVID. But people come up and speak to those practitioners one-on-one. And, the idea is that they're there to listen, to pray, and to know the highest and best for this person. And it's a very powerful experience. Our practitioners also do have sessions with people for spiritual support. They can make an appointment, come see them during the week. We have rooms they can be in for privacy. So those things happen. And people call me all the time for prayer. They'll call the office and ask, is anyone there that can pray for me? And so if one of the ministers is there, then we do that. Otherwise, we have someone call them back. It's nice to have more than one minister. Our smaller churches often only have one minister. It's great to have a team. We have on this call, we have 3 ministers from our center: Bev Conover, Kathy Sinfield, and Catherine McKinney. So thank you for being here, y'all. They probably wondered what I was going to say. I've been with this community since April, and I was really called in to be interim senior minister while we're in this transition area where Dr. Moira is recovering. And so I'm just really love working with them. And the nice thing is I already knew Dr. Moira. We have worked together. I have many positions with Centers for Spiritual Living. I was I was a regional support coordinator. I supported all the centers in Southern California, well, my part of Southern California. And she supported the ones in the LA area. I was like San Diego, Orange County, and East, and she did the LA area. So we worked together, and then I became field leader, and I was managing all of the regional support coordinators. I was actually responsible for our centers around the world for 3 years. I was elected to that position. So I was responsible for the health and well-being of our centers around the world, responsible for education, licensing, credentialing, ethics, and it was a busy time. And I decided I would retire after that, and here I am. I've been an interim minister. This is my 3rd church since I retired, where I'm just stepping in. One church I was at for 20 months, another one 5 months. This one, I've just been there since April. So, and I love them all. I already knew Reverend Catherine because I had taught the school of ministry there. And I already knew Valerie Reeves, who was at that time, she was our executive director. She's now just a staff minister. So it's kind of nice to step in. And I've been to the center before for an ordination, other special things. So I felt like coming home. I went on and on about other things.
Does anybody else? No, that's fine. That's great. Does anyone else have another question? I have at least a couple more. So.
Oh, good for you.
So if you didn't speak up, I have just a couple more questions. One of them was about prayer. I had this experience. I visited my mother, and she goes to like a church that's sort of, I don't know, maybe related to Baptist or something like that. They're sort of independent, but there was a class that she was in with just a few people. There was like 5 of them and me. She asked if I could come and sit in. And they had the discussion on the curriculum that they were, studying and discussing. And then they had this time of prayer where everyone could, if they wanted to, sort of in turn, sort of voice a prayer. It was sort of like a quiet time. and then the person that was facilitating, when it seemed like everyone who did want to pray out loud had done so, then said a prayer to sort of, so it was a different experience. We in our church, we don't pray, we don't practice prayer that way. So it made me think that, oh, it was an interesting experience where people were sharing. So uh if you do have like maybe you could elaborate just a little bit, because I'm curious how these folks, practitioners, work with people in prayer. Do they do sort of like allow people to pray vocally as a group? So, because obviously people then bring their concerns out, and then others hear that, and it gives them some awareness. Do they sort of facilitate, mentor, work with people on how to pray, how to express themselves? Do they sort of facilitate? What are some of the things that the folks who are the prayer, you call it practitioners, sort of do to sort of facilitate that in? And it seems like, yeah, there's maybe like, they don't want the group to be too big, and but that to me is fascinating as to how they facilitate that, because what I learned from that experience is that when people are able to pray, give an individual prayer out loud, it usually has to be with a group of folks that they trust, right? Because and then they're able to share, they're able to voice things that are really concerning, that them, or that their goals or whatever, and it gives others an opportunity to support them, to show, to minister to them, right? They because that's part of serving, is not just to do some service, but to meet the needs of those that you're ministering to. So if you could elaborate a little bit about that, is if that's how it works, or it's something different, I'd be really fascinated to know.
Great question. So we have classes all the time, and that is where we teach people to pray. And that is where they practice prayer, is in our classes. We have, education is huge for us. We consider ourselves a teaching order. That's like the number one thing. And so we don't just have, we have, and I didn't even mention this, every Sunday before service at 10:15, our service starts at 11. So from 10:15 to 10:45, we have a Science of Mind study group, and we actually read the Science of Mind textbook from the beginning to the end over a long period of time. And so wherever they are in the book, and there's a large group of people that gather in a big circle, and we don't actually stop and pray in that time, but really the place we teach prayer and we have people praying for themselves or others is in our classes. We start with how to pray, and move them through many different classes. Right now I'm teaching a class called The Roots of Science of Mind. We're delving into the works of the three people I talked about before, Emerson, Troward, and Hopkins, Emma Curtis Hopkins. And so we're taking a deep dive. And then how does what they taught affect us? And how do you see its relationship to what Ernest Holmes shared in our philosophy? So it's about engaging people in class. And our classes are very interactive and very experiential. It's not just like lectures or anything. It's and people do have homework, and they do write prayers. So as they move through the classes, they learn more. When we have our meetings with our practitioners and our ministers, we always pray for each other. We take prayer requests, and then we sometimes one person, we decide who's praying for who, or sometimes we just move the prayer around the circle and everybody does a different part of a prayer. But
Yeah, that was a little bit what this class, they did. I remember now, they did ask for people to pray for, right? Like, what were they call them prayer concerns, right? And then as they were each praying, different ones took different. It just sort of worked out that way. It was really quite remarkable. It was almost sort of like the efforts together, right? Was really quite wonderful to witness. Thank you for sharing them. That really helps a lot. Another question I have, I always ask our speakers to talk about what they do to help their youth make good choices. And I, sort of leave it open to that, but it does a number of the things you've mentioned about the classes, about the service. What and things like that is, how do you involve your youth? I guess there's sort of like, we would call in my church primary age children, sort of young children, and then sort of like teenagers, right? Sort of more like young adults in the classes, in the service, and things like that. And sort of how does that work as far as sort of helping? But I mean, I really see it as helping them get to where they can make good choices, right, in their life, when they're outside of church, right, in school and their friends and stuff like that. Make good choices, show love and kindness to others, and things like that. How does that work as far as what you do and work with your youth?
So we have had fabulous youth programs and curriculum over the years. And right now we're just at this center rebuilding our youth. We maybe have 5 to 7 children, and we don't have I'm looking now for a youth director that can really get the lessons and help. We have 3 people that work with the children, but we want to get them trained up so they know, so they're teaching things. But we have a curriculum on virtues. So every week we teach a virtue. There's 52 virtues, just happens to fit in a year. But we also have other curriculum, and we teach them how to about God, and how to pray, and how to find peace, and all of that. But I think the virtues is kind of what you're talking about, is creating that foundation of making good choices. And then we teach, it's interactive in a way so that you can listen to what their concerns are, and they can be heard and empowered to make good choices, to be a good person on the planet.
Well, and I can recognize the benefit of helping children learn how to pray, right? How to practice. It may be more rudimentary, so we have a practice in our church where one Sunday a month we have a time to get up and share a testimony, right? Share something that has built our faith. And on occasion, a parent will bring a child up and we'll sort of help them, let's say give like a very simple testimony. And it may be sort of a little bit of a recitation, but it sort of gets them in the motions,
Mhm.
and feeling comfortable to do that, so that when they're, as they're older, they can then feel comfortable sharing with others, sort of participating in that practice. So I can see how that, even starting with sort of, let's say values, right, as a start to get, and then look for opportunities to involve them. So yeah,
So
that's great.
let me just say a word to you. My brother is a Mormon, and very seriously involved and engaged in the church. He lives in, where does he live? He lives in Colorado now, but he originally married someone in the faith, and was in Salt Lake City, the Salt Lake City area. And so I deeply respect his faith and the way the community takes care of itself. And I've been to, when his children went on missions, I've been to hear their talks when they came back home, and I've been in the center when youth have shared. And I think that getting the kids up there even when they're young is really empowering. So I appreciate that. I want to say that we also have a separate teen group, and that our and recently we had a whole panel of professionals speak about parenting teens, and we had 2 teens on the panel really addressing the issues, today's issues with teens, and about hearing them, but also having structure for them. And it was very powerful. We had people from the community, we had a psychologist, we had people from some of the organizations that support teens in our community. I wish we had more people there, because I wish it was recorded. It was fabulous. And
Yeah.
doing a lot of work to have resources for the parents. We have a teen camp twice a year. We have a summer camp up this year. Now it's up in Portland. We actually own a campground now,
Oh, cool.
Cedar Ridge. And I've been to that teen camp twice. It's a week long. It's transformative. Kids come there that are depressed or wounded or
Yeah.
not having faith in themselves, and they walk away changed, because the exercises that are created help them discover that they're not alone in the world, and that they can be loved, and that they can love each other and empower each other to be more whole. And so we've just seen amazing things. We also have winter camps, which are usually on the East Coast and the West Coast, as opposed to everybody goes to the one on the West Coast in the summer. So I think the work we do with teens is phenomenal. We had a teen speak at our annual conference up in Asilomar this year, and she talked about how teen camp changed her life. She was suffering from depression, didn't even want to go, but the church paid her way, and so she had to go.
Yeah.
I got there and I don't know these people and I don't want to be here. She said, then they put me in a family and everything changed because you get
Yeah,
connected.
we have a program now. They call it For the Strength of Youth, and they'll go for a week. And my son had participated out at University of Redlands was the location, and I remember he had a roommate that was not very active, like sort of distanced from the church, and had such a wonderful, powerful, positive experience that week. My son just saw like big changes in him, and even my son, who was very, very active, just had it had an enormous impact on him. And I think the key thing, and you really, I can recognize how your church really focus it's all very positive. It's very positive, right, and uplifting. It's not people lecturing a bunch of kids about what they should and shouldn't do and stuff like that. It's very positive. It's very empowering. That's the kind of thing that has such a deep impact on youth, is to know that people care about them, that God loves them in however you define it, and that they have the ability to benefit and be blessed by that. And so I hear that in everything that you're talking about, sort of what your church's values are and the things that you do to support adults and also by extension definitely youth. So that's great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah, Father Alexi, please.
One final question. You referred to God as the first cause, the one mind, the presence, and you referred to Jesus as the great waste shower, which I liked, both of those. But I don't think you ever mentioned what we would term the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. So would you say you are classically what we term Trinitarian or not?
We sort of, if you looked at our symbol, it's a circle with 3 parts.
I noticed that, yes.
Yeah. Well, the top part is like spirit, like that's the source, the cause, God.
Okay.
The center part is, you could call it the Holy Spirit. We don't call it that. We call it kind of the way it works. Like that's like the soul. We call it spirit, soul, and body. The outpicturing in the world. And that V that comes down, that's spirit showing up through the creative process. The center part, we really look at it's like unknown to us how things are created. And that's the part that when we have faith, we put that faith out, and then something changes and brings into manifestation in the bottom section of the body. I would say we're not exactly Christian Trinitarians at all. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we don't really have a Holy Ghost. When I was Catholic, I did, but not anymore. You call it soul.
All right, great. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for your participation, and thank you, Reverend Hudson, so much for your great presentation, for answering all our questions. I know I speak for everyone. I really learned a lot, and it really turned out great. So we can close. I'll leave it to you, Reverend Hudson, if you'd like to offer some type of benediction or whatever you normally would do in a setting like this, and then we'll adjourn for this month.
A setting like this, well, often we open and close meetings and classes with prayer. We both do it usually at the beginning and at the end. Sometimes we just say goodbye at the end of a business meeting, but I do like to close in prayer. So
well, this is definitely like a class, so we've all learned a lot. So think of it that way. So
right.
please do.
So if you wish, just join me for a moment in opening heart and mind again to just feel the sense of connection we've had here, the glory of bringing wisdom, care, and connection within this group and beyond. And I just take a moment to be grateful, knowing that the power of God has moved through all the questions and the presence of each person here, that I trust that we are carrying in our hearts a vision for the well-being of each person on this call, for our spiritual communities, for our friends, our families, and beyond. And most of all, we carry a vision of hopeful, joyful expectancy of good across the land. and in our world. That things are coming back into balance, back into wholeness, that healing is happening wherever it's needed, because the presence of God is always there and powerfully able to do that. And so I just let go, let the divine wisdom flow, knowing it is good with a grateful heart. I accept this is so, and so it is.
Thank you. Okay, so last thing, keep in mind, the South Coast Interfaith Council will have I think it's an interfaith concert, and also a unity dinner. Right now, the dates are November 5th, which is a Sunday for the concert, and November 11th, which is a Saturday for the dinner. That'll be in November. And then, so if you sort of check out the webpage, scinterfaith.org, you'll see that. That's a great opportunity. The concert location is just about finalized. The dinner location is going to be at our church's building on Kent Avenue in Torrance, so in the South Bay. I think the concert might be in the Long Beach area. So we try to, sort of split it between those two areas, because that's what the SCIC serves, Long Beach area and the South Bay. So keep that in mind, and check out our webpage, and then hope to see you next month for a Religion 101 again in October. So thanks everyone for joining us, and have a great evening. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
James.
you. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Good night.
That was great. Thank you. Bye.